The bell rings. Students shuffle into Lecture Hall 204 at Westwood University, backpacks slung over shoulders, laughter echoing. Sunlight spills through tall windows, casting a glow over rows of worn wooden desks. In the third row, a young man in a gray hoodie sinks low, blending into the crowd. This is Barron Trump, but here he's just Daniel, a quiet student determined to escape his famous last name. Professor Martha Lewis strides in, her sharp heels clicking. She's known for tearing apart public figures in her lectures, and today's topic is perception versus reality. Let's talk about what makes a public image powerful, she says, her voice cutting through the room. A few students smirk. They know what's coming. Take Melania Trump, Professor Lewis continues, writing the name on the board. The room tenses. Barron's jaw tightens. A woman praised for her elegance. But has she actually contributed anything meaningful? A ripple of chuckles spreads. Jessica, a top student, leans forward, intrigued. Mark, her friend, fumbles with his phone, accidentally hitting record. Barron's hands clench under his desk. He hears the words shallow, image, decoration. His mother's face flashes in his mind. The late nights she worked, the sacrifices she made, the way the world reduced her to a punchline. The professor's voice sharpens. Why celebrate someone who's just a pretty face? The room erupts in laughter. Barron stands. Every head turns. Professor Lewis freezes. You make an interesting point, he says, his voice steady but loud enough to silence the room. But have you ever tried to understand who Melania Trump is? Or do you only see the image the media created? Jessica's eyes widen. Mark stops breathing, his phone still rolling. The professor blinks, thrown. My mother didn't grow up in wealth, Barron continues, his words gaining force. She came from a small town in Slovenia, learned English alone, built a career from nothing. She endured ridicule, scrutiny, yet you dismiss her as a symbol. The room is electric. Professor Lewis opens her mouth to counter, but Barron doesn't stop. You criticize her for not speaking enough, yet when she does act, the Be Best initiative, advocating for children, you mock it. Why? Because her story doesn't fit your narrative? Mark's phone trembles in his hand. Jessica's smirk fades. The professor's confidence wavers. Behind every public figure, Barron says, quieter now, there's a person. Maybe, instead of judging them, we should listen. The silence hangs. Professor Lewis stares, uncharacteristically speechless. Barron sits. No one moves. The bell rings, but no one leaves. As students spill into the hallway, whispers buzz. Who was that? Mark stares at his phone, realizing he's captured something huge. Jessica lingers, eyes on Barron. You okay? She asks. He nods, shoulders relaxing. But the lecture hall's doors have already closed on a moment that will ignite a firestorm. By midnight, the video had exploded. Mark's shaky footage, uploaded to TikTok with the caption, Student silences professor in class, spread like wildfire. Comments flooded in. Who is this guy? Melania's son? Finally, someone called out the bias. Talk shows dissected the clip. Memes mocked Professor Lewis. Barron's face, calm, defiant, became a symbol for standing your truth. But in his dorm room, Barron stared at his phone, unease knotting his stomach. Notifications blared. Hero. Fake news. Tell us more about Melania. He turned the screen off. This wasn't about fame. It was about truth. The next morning, Westwood University buzzed. Students packed Lecture Hall 204, craning their necks to glimpse Daniel. Reporters lurked outside, shouting questions. Barron slipped in through a side door, hood up, avoiding cameras. Jessica caught up to him. You okay? She asked, softer now. He nodded. Just here to learn. Professor Lewis arrived, her usual confidence frayed. She avoided eye contact as she set down her notes. The class held its breath. "Before we begin," she said, voice steady but quieter, "a reminder. Critical thinking isn't about tearing others down. It's about challenging ourselves." She glanced at Barron. "Thank you for that lesson." The room erupted. Students exchanged stunned looks. Mark whispered, "She never apologizes." Online, the debate raged. Critics called Barron a privileged pawn. Supporters praised his courage. Melania's team released a statement. "Barron speaks for himself. We're proud of his heart." Meanwhile, Professor Lewis sat in her office, staring at her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed, "A professor's job is to teach students to question. Yesterday, a student questioned me, and I'm grateful." The post went viral. Days later, the frenzy slowed. Barron refused interviews, returning to his routine: library study sessions, late-night pizza runs, avoiding cameras. But the classroom dynamic shifted. Students lingered after class, asking Jessica and Mark about that day. Even Professor Lewis seemed gentler. In a quiet moment, Barron texted his mom. "They're listening now." She replied, "You did good, SR Smohe." The final lecture before finals, Professor Lewis announced an essay topic. When is criticism fair? When is it harm? Jessica raised her hand. "Can we write about the power of listening?" Lewis smiled faintly. "That's exactly what I hope you'll explore." As the bell rang, Barron packed his bag. Jessica hesitated, then said, "You changed things, you know." He shrugged. "I just asked a question." "Sometimes," she said, "that's enough." The video's legacy endured. Teachers used it in ethics classes. Students quoted Barron's words, "Behind every image, there's a person." And in Lecture Hall 204, a new note appeared on the board: "Listen first. Judge later." No one knew who wrote it, but everyone knew why.